Not only is it Matt Stafford heading back to the place where he spent a lot of time, he clearly is very familiar with Ford Field. Also, it's the revenge game for Jared Goff, who was traded away as an afterthought, saying, this is not a guy that can win a Super Bowl. Now he's been really good with the Detroit Lions. And, oh, by the way, the storyline for the Lions is they have not won a playoff game since 1992. Now they are favorites at home. All of the pressure seems to be on the Lions here. So the hopes of this city feel like they're resting on this game and going against their former quarterback. I think this one is the juiciest of them all this weekend.
Yeah, I love Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. It's easily the best one. And also, we're going to sleep on the Jared Goff story because Matthew Stafford got a ring. That's the thing. So I think he'll get more of the attention because statistically or historically, I should say, he's the better quarterback because he had such a long history with the Lions. But this is really, to me, about Jared Goff, who has sort of reinvented himself with the Lions. Because remember, when he was in LA, the reason why they got rid of him is that they didn't think he had what it took to take them to the next level. And you know what? They were right because Matthew Stafford got it done. But no matter what happens, Matthew Stafford is a world champion. Jared Goff is not. Jared Goff is at home. Jared Goff's team is the favorite. So I think it's the best storyline, but also I'm more interested in the Goff angle than the Stafford angle because we know Stafford's story. That his narrative isn't going to change here, but Goff can change the narrative more than Stafford can. As someone who certainly has followed Kansas City in the past and you're going to be covering the game this weekend, how much truth is there to that, or is it overblown to an extent?
No, not overblown at all. When you consider the help they're getting, there's really no excuse to have a poor receiving core when you have Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. This offensive line has been doing great, second fewest sacks allowed. It's not like the rest of the offense is breaking down, right? And especially the interior of that offensive line. It's just all these Pro Bowlers, all this consistency, good rapport with Patrick. But as you watch Patrick Mahomes' demeanor throughout the season, that's what we haven't seen before. It's like he's not used to this. And I personally love it. He's been getting some flack, I've heard on some shows and stuff, like he's got to be a leader. He's got to pull it together. No, he's dealing with such subpar performances, and he's not used to that. He has not done that, since college? So no, especially when this is the best defense he's ever had. This is inexcusable, unacceptable. I kept waiting at the trade deadline all day on my phone thinking, Chiefs are going to get a receiver. Chiefs are going to get a receiver. Nothing. Crickets. So I don't know what's going on. Of course, they're trying to get a little bit healthier now. Like as you look at McCole Hardman, all that, it's been brutal. And the injury report isn't helping them either. As I'm looking at even Rashee Rice, he's been a bright spot and he's a little bit banged up dealing with a hamstring. So I do really worry about that part of it. And when you think if everyone else is breaking down, Travis Kelce, right? He's got to shine. And here he is. He missed what could have been his 8th straight 1,000-yard season. Now, he could have gotten it if he played last week, just 16 yards shy, but it's still just an game that this is not our typical Travis Kelce. We're seeing him slip a bit, 34 years old, rumors of retirement. Oh, you just hate to see this happen when the rest of the team is built to succeed.
Okay, so I mentioned some of your experience covering the Packers. They've got a big game, as you mentioned, against the Cowboys in Dallas. The line is 7.5. So we all know that the Cowboys are juggernauts at home. But Jordan Love has shown some flashes of being a really good quarterback. Do you think the Packers stand a chance here?
Well, I love the number. I love Packers plus 7.5 if you're going to pick a side. I just think with, the youth, obviously, everyone's and the confidence and the low expectations, and here they are. It's just such a good story. But Jordan Love is the crux of all this. In the second half of the season, so since week 11, he's second in EPA per play. He's fourth in success rate. By the way, guessing in EPA per play, Dak Prescott. So this is going to be a good one. If anything, I like the over in this game as well, if you don't want to pick a side, because the Dallas defense – Green Bay is one of the worst run defenses. So the formula for this one is if Tony Pollard can get more involved, get more consistent. But I just that part of the Dallas story hasn't been very strong or convincing. So yeah, from a betting standpoint, I love Packers plus 7.5. But it's tough to beat the Cowboys at home. So I think Cowboys win this one.
So the numbers have not been kind to these young quarterbacks. But I will say, In this first matchup that I'm looking at, Tua Tagovailoa has not played in the playoffs yet in his young career. Going against Patrick Mahomes, also should be noted that Tua is playing on the road here. But I'll say this about Tua. He has played in big games before. He played at Alabama. He came in the second half. Even as a quarterback okay, what's that look for? What's that look on your face for?
I'm just saying playing in a big game in college is markedly different from playing in a big game in the NFL. Because a lot of these guys, it's something, but ultimately you've got to have some sort of body of evidence in pro football because most of these guys have played in big games in college, or most of these guys, or a lot of these guys have had a lot of success in college. That doesn't necessarily translate. Sometimes it does. But for a guy like Tua, yeah, but that was how many years ago now? I'm just thinking if you're making a case for Tua playing in a big game at this level, I can't base it on him having an incredible freshman appearance for the Crimson Tide, 4 years ago, something like that?
I'm just saying that it's better than no experience because I would say playing in a national championship game is still a pretty big spotlight, especially at the time, because he has had more years to prepare for this moment. But I think the thing that goes against him is just the Dolphins this year have not been good against the cream of the crop. What's the stat? They have a negative 91 point differential against teams that are in the playoffs. So I think it's more than just the quarterback position that you're analyzing here, and also the fact that the Dolphins have a litany of injuries coming into this matchup. It's a road game. Also, it's supposed to be terrible weather. So maybe you can pin this on Tua being a young quarterback in this one with no playoff experience. And we'll see. If he's the sole reason why they lose this game, you can come back to this number. But of course, it's still a team game, and there are other factors at play here. So of these quarterback matchups, which one do you think experience is playing the biggest factor between two quarterbacks in a matchup?
Like the biggest gulf? Yeah. I would say, that's a tough one. Honestly, I think it's Joe Flacco versus CJ Stroud, maybe. Because Flacco has been there and done that numerous times with the Ravens, obviously, and then C.J. Stroud, clearly, never been to the NFL playoffs before. But what I think is interesting, though, is that at the same time, even though I like the Browns in this game, they're laying 2.5 points or minus 145 on the money line. The Texans are plus 120. If there is a quarterback, I think, who can rise up to the moment and maybe surprise us with his performance, I think it is C.J. Stroud, because there were all of these questions going into the season about Ohio State quarterbacks. There were all of these questions about whether or not C.J. Stroud could be that guy. There's a reason why he did not go number one and went number 2 overall, because Bryce Young went number 1 instead. And C.J. Stroud has been the quarterback setting rookie records because of his performance. And it's not like the Texans are all world. They're a very good team, but they're only going to get better. And so there's a bigger gulf there. There's a bigger discrepancy. At the same time, I also think Stroud is the one guy who could get it done and surprise us.
Right, because that's what he's been doing all season long, really surprising people as the rookie quarterback of the Houston Texans. But I just happen to think the Browns as a team overall are the better team in this matchup. And like I said, sometimes it doesn't all fall on the shoulders of the quarterbacks. Here's an interesting one. Jordan Love against Dak Prescott, because Dak Prescott does have the playoff experience, but he doesn't have a good record in the playoffs. 2-4 in the postseason. So does this negate some of the advantages one would think he has by having this playoff experience?
I would normally say yes, but I also think that Dak Prescott is a different quarterback this year. And there's two things that go into this. Number one, Dak Prescott has gotten back to using his legs more and becoming a little bit more of a dual threat. Not a classic dual threat, but also the Cowboys have a point differential of plus 172 when playing at home. They're just a different animal when playing in Dallas.
Oh, for sure. Hard to go against the Cowboys when playing at Jerry World.